Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and in today's video, I want to talk about whether or not Bitcoin has found a support or not. Now, if you guys like this content, please let me know. Like and also subscribe. I greatly appreciate that. Follow me on Twitter for the most up-to-date information. So what we have here right now is a support level at about 22,200. Bitcoin has come all the way down here after its big dump it had on Friday, and it has bounced a little bit off of this level. Now, if you go ahead and take a look at something very interesting right below that, you can see the 200-day moving average right below that at about 21,700. Now, this level, this 200-day moving average, is absolutely essential for Bitcoin right now because it needs to hold this level. In fact, if you go take a look at back in February where it attempted to cross under that level, you can see here that it was bought up very quickly. There is a very strong bounce off of that level back in February. And if you believe in the Bitcoin uptrend, it absolutely needs to hold this 200-day moving average. We've oftentimes used the 200-day moving average as support and resistance in the past here. We can see it's had a pretty large effect on Bitcoin prices. And especially if we go all the way back here to the previous bear market, what we can see is that it has acted as support many, many times here on the way. And only when it crosses under would that be the start of a downtime or down period. And especially when it goes under, that's proven to be very good times to buy. But right now, we're looking to see if this level holds. So I would go ahead and pencil in a support band right now at about, let me get to my boxes here. So I'd put this in at about this level right here. I'd say from 21,500 to about here at about 22,200. So this is potentially very strong support right here in this box. And I expect buyers are going to step in and buy while in this price box. So we've also go ahead and take a look at your RSI, your daily RSI. We're at 43 right now, which is fairly low for Bitcoin, especially considering it spent such a massive amount of time back in January here above that 70 level, which is overbought. But right now, it's kind of more in the middle of the range. And the fact that it's under, that it's kind of sticking around 40 means that either, according to the RSI, it has more room to move up or it has more room to move down. So this is kind of what I would expect for the Bitcoin price. I would expect that if we're going to, if it's going to come under this level here at about 22,200, then it will be heavily bought within this box. And especially, we want to make sure that that 200-day moving average holds. And if it does not hold, that does not bode well for the Bitcoin price. If it does not hold, then what you're looking at is a retest down here at 20,600. And then if that doesn't hold, what you're looking at is potentially coming down all the way to about 18,000. So that's not a good sign if you're bullish on Bitcoin. You want to see this 200-day moving average hold. And if it doesn't, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think for now, I'm pretty confident in saying that I think the support band will hold. Now, that honestly, I would say that also depends upon what happens this week. Because if we get another black swan type of event, it can come right through this, and we can see that retest here of 20,600, and then we'll see what happens after that point. But if we do get kind of a black swan event, if we get more negative news from the Silvergate crypto bank, or if we get more FUD coming from the SEC, that can always push the price down even lower. Now, one thing I've seen with Bitcoin recently is a potential exhaustion right now of buyers, and that's evident kind of by the fact that we have, when we take a look at the funding rate, we start to have negative funding rates. We had a whole, let's call it about 6 to 8 hours of a period of negative funding rates right here. So shorts were dominant from about here to here, and then longs recovered and took over dominance after that point. Now, this is something that we actually haven't seen in some time. The last time it happened here was the 13th of February, and basically since then, it had always been green. And if you go back even further, the last time it happened here was, apart from these little bits and pieces, was all the way back in the capitulation zones back in December and in November. Let's go out to the day here. Yeah, so the last time you saw these negative funding rates daily was about 18th December, right near that huge capitulation level for FTX. So we've started to see a little bit of weakness in the derivatives market. We're starting to see that their longs are getting crushed right now, and shorts are starting to pile in, and they're starting to increase their position here. We can actually see here on the daily that there have been a couple times in which this has been the case. Now, if this is kind of like what we've seen before, like back, say, in the 12th of February, we could potentially see a reacceleration of the longs come in, and they could push the price higher. That is entirely possible. However, I don't think it's going to work out the same way this time as we saw back here in the 12th of February. I think right now what we're seeing is buyer exhaustion set in, and we're going to wind up seeing some sideways chop for the intermediate term. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at our Bitcoin total liquidations, there's also something that's very important here, is that we've seen about $78 million worth of longs get completely liquidated from the market. And if we go and we look at our crypto liquidations from the long side, we can see that $200 million of crypto long liquidations happened on the 2nd of March. So we've had a huge flush out of the system. We've had a lot of margin flushed out of the system. And so now what we're seeing is a little bit of recovery of the ecosystem, because we saw that in this kind of huge pump upwards that we have in the Bitcoin price, that we started to see more traders, more gamblers come and trade and use margin to push up their positions. So now we're starting to see a little bit of a deleveraging of that margin. So I think that's honestly pretty healthy for the Bitcoin economy as a whole. Now, I've also talked about the Bitcoin miners reserve metric before, and what we're seeing here right now is that miners continue to sell. They have been selling pretty highly ever since the 22nd of February. The miners reserve tells us how many Bitcoins are in the affiliated Bitcoin miners wallets, and we've seen it take a huge tumble down all the way since the 22nd of February, and now we're seeing now that it's actually come down even below this little bounce point here on the 28th. So this is a low on Bitcoin reserve that we have not seen in an entire year. We've hit an all new low for the miners reserve, and that just goes to show you that miners right now are taking profits. They are selling into strength, especially above, call it 22,000 or so, somewhere in that region, 22,000, 25,000. Those are prime areas that the miners are selling in right now. And if we go ahead and take a look at the Bitcoin spent output profit ratio, you can think of this like realized profits. We can see here that it is currently under 1, which means right now that the sellers, majority of the sellers right now are selling at a loss. And that is not normally something you would see as part of a bull market. Normally, as part of a bull market, you'd wind up seeing, we zoom out here a little bit, we can take a look at the 2021 bull market. The 1 is kind of the dotted line here, but normally what we would see is we'd see in 2021, it kind of stayed above 1 the whole time for a long time, in fact, and then it actually went down below that level back in May, but then it returned back again in July and August, and after that point, after, say, November, it starts to dip below that line more and more and more, and especially with the big capitulation that we saw back in November of last year. We're seeing right now it's kind of in between the profitability and the non-profitability. The last week or so, the last month or so, some periods have been in heavy profit, and some periods have been under profit right now. And in order to see a bull market, what we need to see is it holding firmly above that 1 level, above that dotted line. And right now, that's not something that we have seen. Now, I don't want to go ahead and just leave on negative news, because I think that there's also some important information to point out. And I actually like to go ahead and take a look and take this opportunity to point out the fact that the Bitcoin halving is going to be happening in about 1 year's time. They say the ETA is March 29th, 2024, but that could change as we get closer to the halving. But traditionally speaking, the halving does lead to a start of a bull market. We'll see if that happens this time. So we're about a little over a year away from that point. And also, we go ahead and take a look at addresses with at least 1 Bitcoin or greater than 1 Bitcoin, and we can see that this has actually hit a new all-time high. So people are actually stacking sats at a level that they haven't been able to stack before. Right now, it's at 983,000 addresses that have at least or greater than 1 Bitcoin. So that's pretty impressive. I think that's actually pretty, that's bullish overall in the long-term health of Bitcoin and the ecosystem. The fact that you have a more equitable distribution and you don't have such a huge concentration among a small number of wallets, that I think is a good sign. Now, when I look at the Bitcoin price, what I always try to relate this to is the realized price, okay? And I'm always looking to buy specifically under the realized price. And so the realized price is kind of an average cost basis for the whole market. Right now, it sits at about 19,800. That is the level I'd be looking at currently to buy Bitcoin. And if I could get it below that level, that would be excellent value in my book. So what we see here is that for the most I'd say most of the bear market, it's been under that level, apart from a couple times here in July and August. And now, after that big pump we had back in January, it's well above that level yet again. And Bitcoin just does not stay below this level for very long. If we zoom out, we take a look at the history here, we can see that it barely spends any time at all below the realized price. So I think for me, that's what I'm looking at right now. If I can get Bitcoin at about 20,000 or around that level, that would be a prime buying opportunity for myself. So let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum here. So Ethereum, just like Bitcoin, we think we found support here. However, I think this support line is a little bit more, it's stronger, because if we go ahead and take a look at the 200-day moving average, which is this blue line here, it is basically right at the 200-day moving average, and that before has shown to be strong support. So I would definitely say pay attention to the 200-day moving average. If it pops under it and it stays under it for a while, that would be very bearish for Ethereum. So if this level holds, that means that we have another shot at trying to take out this 1715 resistance point, which it has not been able to overcome in some time now. So if we also take a look at Binance Coin as well, Binance Coin is in the middle of its own strong support. I'd put this at about 287 here to about 281, and we can see if this level is going to hold or not. If this level doesn't hold in this box, I would say that we are coming back down to probably 271, and then probably down here to about 260. Now, what's special about Binance Coin is we're starting to actually see quite a bit of a lack of demand for Binance Coin. We have the in the daily RSI, it's about down to 37, so that's about the lowest that we've seen for Bitcoin or for ETH. Those are all higher at about 43. This is 37, indicating the fact that it's very close to being oversold right now, according to RSI. So that's something to keep in mind for the Binance Coin price. All right. So let's talk very quickly here about some events that are happening this week. I have the MarketWatch U.S. economic calendar, and I'll point out the most important events in my opinion. You have some Fed presidents that are speaking. That's going to happen. Actually, that happened yesterday. And you also have the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, testifying to the Senate. That's going to happen on Tuesday. That's going to be important. You also have him testifying to the House as well. That's going to be the next day. And these two things right here, him testifying to the House and Senate, could provide a lot of volatility into the market. So that's something that we should always watch out for. There's also going to be job openings going out on Wednesday as well. You have the Fed Governor Waller speaking on Thursday. Again, more volatility. And you also have the employment reports and the unemployment rate on March 10th, that Friday. Okay, so those are the big events happening this week. Any one of those events could move the market in one direction or another. Just know that we're setting up for a little bit of volatility, probably not as much as if we had CPI and the FOMC, but we're going to see some volatility this week based off of these speakers testifying and giving their thoughts on the market and what the interest rate should be. All right, so that's all I've got for you guys today. If you guys like this content, let me know. Like, subscribe, and go ahead and leave a comment. And be sure to follow me on Twitter for the most up-to-date information. This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.